Hello everyone and welcome to our week 4 lecture. This week we will be discussing chapter 4 and individual psychology and Alfred Adler. We're going to open up our lecture by watching a video clip that is going to give you an overview about Alfred Adler. So that's just a brief overview of Alfred Adler. And let's go back to our PowerPoint. So Alfred Adler was born in 1870. In 1888, he began studying at the University of Vienna Medical School. In 1898, he established a private practice in Vienna. In 1904, he published The Physician as an Educator, which was a medical journal. In 1922, he published The Theory and Practice of Individual Psychology. In 1924, he became a professor at Vienna's Pedagogical Institute. In 1929, he became an adjunct professor at Vienna University. And in 1931, he published What Life Should Mean to You. And then in 1937, on May 28th, he passed away. Alfred Adler was influenced by Marx philosophy, and he also became very good friends with Sigmund Freud, who we discussed during week 1 in our first lecture. And he joined Freud's discussion group in 1902. In 1911, Adler started to not agree with Freud and his theory as it relates to sex influencing much of an individual's lifelong development. So he left Freud's discussion group and developed the Society for Individual Psychology. Individual psychology, as a counseling theory, is holistic. It focuses on the whole person, the mind, the body, and the spirit. It's a phenomenological approach. It's idiographic, and it focuses on social and interpersonal relationships. Alfred Adler believed people often try to compensate in order to overcome obstacles in their life. And our personalities are affected by how we compensate or overcome. Alfred Adler rejected the theory of compensation because it was implied that people's problems cause them to be who and what they are. Individual psychology consists of a masculine protest, striving for superiority, viewing individuals as wholes and not as parts, and again, the social and interpersonal relationships. In individual psychology, Alfred Adler discussed human motivation, and people are drawn towards goals, purposes, and ideals. There's a focus on teleology. And Adler, he rejected the theory of compensation because it was implied that people's problems caused them to be who and what they are. So during the formulation of his theory, he believed in that individuals do overcompensate. However, as he started to do research with his clients and human motivation, he's no longer believed that compensation, he rejected the theory of compensation due to the fact that people's problems cause them to be who and what they are, and he didn't believe that. People create partial truths. And what did Alfred Adler mean by partial truths? He meant that some individuals go through life wearing rose-colored glasses in order to be able to deal with certain experiences that they may have encountered throughout their life, such as an individual who may have been subject to years of domestic violence by a partner or spouse, and creating a truth as the fact that, well, I stayed because I wanted my child to grow up with both their mother and father in the household. So that's a partial truth that an individual has created in order to cope with that situation or any situation. Fictions are used on a daily basis, and fictional finalism. So again, individuals believing things are a certain way in order to cope with certain mechanisms that are occurring in their life. Social interest is innate, but it must be nurtured in order to survive. So children may grow up and they may want to be a basketball player or a dancer. However, in order for someone to grow up and become a basketball player or a dancer, they have to have experienced ballet, tap jazz, basketball camp. They have to learn how to play basketball or how to dance and learn pertinent skills so that goal can become a reality. And so Alfred Adler believed that social interests or hobbies and relationships must be nurtured in order for that goal to become to fruition. So scheduling sleepovers for your children or play dates so they learn pertinent social skills and they're able to socialize appropriately when they get older. He also believes social failures lack in social interests, and social failures are unfulfilled and are concerned with only themselves. So a social failure, for instance, individuals having difficulty maintaining friendships or making friends, maintaining relationships. It could be due to the fact that they did not have practice growing up with other children. That's why historically it's been proven that daycare and also preschool and Head Start, they are very appropriate for younger children because they learn socialization skills. Whereas if a parent chooses to keep their child at home and do not have them socialized until they go to kindergarten, they may have difficulty forming relationships with their peers due to the fact that they had not had that early social interaction and their peers are already ahead of them due to the fact that they may have already attended preschool or daycare. So Alfred Adler proposed that people become interested in only themselves. And it's a very important question to ask. Why do people become interested in only themselves? And a lot of the times it's due to the culture. In the United States, we are a very individualistic society. It's about what can I do? How can I advance in my career? How can I buy that new car? How can I buy a house? How can I increase my credit score? How can my kids advance in school and get scholarships? And it's focusing on me and my immediate surroundings and needs, because individuals who are a part of an individualistic society oftentimes think about only them, whereas individuals within a collective society or collective culture, the emphasis is on the individuals within that collective community. So in some cultures, individuals, they will focus on not only their family, but their friends and the people within their sect. And the focus is not on just them, but is how can all of us advance forward. So it's a very important question to ask yourself. Are you individualistic, or do you think with a collectivist mindset? People develop an inferiority complex when they are overwhelmed by feelings of inferiority. So feeling like you're less than someone else. An inferiority complex is considered neurosis or a psychological problem. There are 3 forms of neurosis: the ruling type, the getting type, and the avoiding type. For those who fall under the ruling type category, from childhood they are characterized by the tendency to be aggressive and dominant over others. They're considered to be pushovers, and bullies are the most energetic, and those with less energy hurt themselves oftentimes by means of suicide, alcohol, and drugs. The getting type are individuals who are usually passive. Those individuals often rely on others to take care of them, and they often use charm to get their way. The avoiding type avoid others in order to survive, so they hate any type of situation in where they have to have some type of social interaction that may be confrontational, and when they are pushed to the edge, they will become psychotic and retreat into their own personal world. Alfred Adler also introduced the theory of birth order. And in childhood, Alfred Adler believed that a faulty lifestyle is the result of childhood feelings of inferiority, pampering, and neglect. Only children are considered to be a unique set as it relates to Alfred Adler's theory on only children. So with the family situation, parents often do not have no experience raising children. They may become rivals of one parent, and the children may become overprotected and spoiled. Children who are only children usually like being the center of attention. They have difficulty sharing, and they prefer adult company and uses adult language. And I am an only child, and I was that child who met all of those characteristics. I loved being the center of attention in my family because all of the attention was always focused on me. And my family is very large, and they would often feel sorry for me because I didn't have any brothers or sisters, and I never had to share growing up. And so it was always very difficult for me to play with other kids and share my toys when people would come over to visit, especially if I did not like them. And I preferred to be around adults growing up, and oftentimes I was around a lot of adults. So for me, I believe that theory holds true. The oldest child is unique as well. Parents often have very high expectations for the oldest child. They're often given responsibility, and they're expected to set an example. And oldest children may become strict or authoritarian, and they may turn to the father after the birth of the next child as it relates to favoring one parent over the other. The second child oftentimes feel very frustrated, as you can see is in this picture, because there's always someone who is ahead of them. They're competitive usually, and they want to usurp the oldest child, and they may become rebellious. The middle child often feels replaced and insignificant. They have usually a take it or leave it attitude, and they often fight for the underdog or injustice. The youngest child is never dethroned, so there are no other children that are going to come behind them to take their place. They usually have many parents as it relates to their sisters and brothers and their parents, and they often have big plans that never work, and they're frequently spoiled. Now, twins are very unique, and one is usually more active and stronger. Parents may view one as being older. They often have an identity problem because they're always referred to, usually growing up, as the twins. We have two sets of twins in my family on my mother's side, and then I have half brothers who are a set of twins. And these statements are very true for them, especially with the identity issue. My cousins Morgan and Megan, we have always called them M&M, or twin 1 and twin 2. And growing up, it was never just hello Morgan or hello Megan. It was always hey M&M. And I remember for many of their birthday parties, people would buy one card for them and address it to both Morgan and Megan. And when they got older and they went to college, they had a very hard time separating, and they went to the same college, and they actually just split up after they got their bachelor's degrees, and both of them are struggling because they missed the other. So in the fall, when one of them finishes nursing school, she's going to move to where her twin is, because she's finishing up pharmacy school, and they're going to live together because they do not like being separated. So it's very true. And also, one twin becomes the leader of the set. Now, the ghost child is a child that is usually born after death. That is born after death, and often feels that they are competing with a deceased child. Many parents who have lost a child and they have another child after the death of the first child, they often become very overprotective, especially mothers, because they are afraid of losing that child and experiencing the pain of the loss of their deceased child. The child may rebel or pretend the mother's over concern is for his or her well-being. Many ghost children feel like that they are living in their deceased sibling's shadow. And it's oftentimes very difficult for those children to separate themselves from being associated with being the sibling to the deceased child. Children who are adopted, parents are very thankful that that they have a child, and they may overspoil them, especially for parents who may have went through years of in vitro trials and were unsuccessful at giving birth, and then also trying for years to adopt a child or wait for an infant to become available for adoption, or taking in children that are older. They're so thankful that they want to give them everything. And they also may overcompensate for the loss of the child's biological parents. So for families who adopt children who may have been in the foster system, whose parents were still in their life or are still in their life, they may try to overcompensate to try to have that child view them as mom and dad rather than the biological parents. So Alfred Adler created a personality assessment that focuses on birth order position, earliest childhood memories, childhood problems, dreams and daydreams, and self-expression. Now, how does Alfred Adler relate to rehabilitation counseling? In 1984, Fahey reviewed Adlerian approaches to intervention strategies for counselors working with students who have learning disabilities. And Kaiser in 1988 applied Adlerian therapy specifically with aggressive children, and she saw aggressive behavior as an indication of a hostile environment. Many school counselors use Adlerian theory and approaches due to his theory on birth order, and birth order is very significant as it relates to a child's behavior within the school system, and also with children with disabilities such as learning disabilities. Looking at their birth order, are they the only child or are they the youngest child? Do they have an inferiority complex? And Adlerian therapy is very useful working with school-age children. For people with disabilities, making decisions about his or her purpose can provide a sense of power and purpose within their life. Adler stated that people go through life striving for perfection in an effort to be like their imagined ideal self. In order to become well-adjusted human beings, it's imperative that the following 3 tasks or problems be solved: work, friendship, and love. And when developing an independent living plan for persons with disabilities, as it relates to being able to navigate their home and their community as independently as possible, you want to think about how do these tasks factor in as it relates to work, friendship, and love, the individual's social and interpersonal skills, their birth order, and reviewing Alfred Adler's thoughts and theory on human nature, how do all of these factors factor in when you are developing a treatment plan for a person with disabilities? That is the end of this lecture. After viewing this lecture, you need to go to the discussion board and complete the discussion board question for this week, and also complete the quiz in the assignment section. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to contact me via phone or via email. And take care and have a good week.